Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic. So if you haven't heard the news over the last few days, actress Mira Furlan has passed away. So she was best known for her role as Delenn on Babylon 5, and she was also on Lost as well. So I picked out an article from Entertainment Weekly, and I'm going to read some of it, go through some of the details of her passing. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I will leave a link in the description below because it is worthwhile giving a read, some of the stuff that's talked about in the article. Mira Furlan, Lost and Babylon 5 actress, dies at age 65. Mira Furlan, the actress behind Danielle Rousseau on Lost and Delenn on Babylon 5, died Wednesday in Los Angeles due to complications with West Nile virus. She was 65. The Twitter account for Furlan announced the news on Thursday, and her manager, Chris Rowe, confirmed the cause of death in a statement to EW. It is with great sadness that I confirm the passing of Mira Furlan, Rowe said. She was a woman full of kindness, strength, and compassion. Mira passed away on Wednesday, January 20th, following complications from West Nile virus. She died peacefully at home in Los Angeles, surrounded by her family. We will all continue to celebrate her life and legacy, and know she'll always be here with us. So, a lot of people talk about these days, strong female characters and stuff like that in science fiction. You hear a lot of talk about, Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor. Those are always the first ones to come to mind. And then there's Rey. That's one of the controversial ones. And Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman and all that. But there were a lot of good female characters in science fiction and movies and stuff that were on the go back in the 90s. And the character of Delenn definitely was one of them. And so Babylon 5 was a really interesting show, because when I was growing up, pretty much all that there was to science fiction in a lot of ways was Star Trek and Star Wars. You had a bunch of Star Trek movies that came out in the 80s, the original crew, and they also had The Next Generation started up in the late 80s and then was carrying on through the 90s. And then you had Deep Space Nine and then Voyager right after that. So Star Trek really dominated science fiction in the 90s. And there were other shows that started up in the 90s that tried to get a foothold in there and never really could do it. There was Earth 2 was one that comes to mind. Alien Nation was another one. Space Above and Beyond. There was a lot of them, but a few of them got in there and actually were able to get a chunk of that market and stay on the air. But Babylon 5 was one of the few shows that actually succeeded in doing this. And I remember when I first seen the pilot back in 93, it came on late one night. I caught it on television, and it was almost like they presented it almost as like a television movie. And that's what I thought it was first, just a one-off. I didn't know it was a lead-in to a series. So I watched that pilot, and now I'd like to be able to say that, I fell in love with the show right away, and I thought it was awesome, and I was immediately hooked, but I wasn't with Babylon 5. The pilot was entertaining. It was something different. It wasn't Star Wars, it wasn't Star Trek, but it was science fiction, and I was a huge science fiction fan. I liked the design of the ships and all that I seen in the show, but I wasn't really into it. I thought it was okay, and I watched the pilot, and that was it. Not really realizing that it was going to be a full-blown series. And then I got into the series, and it took me a full season to actually get into Babylon 5. I never really got into the show in season 1. I kind of watched it sporadically off and on, and then really didn't get hooked into the show until season 2. That's when I truly became a fan of Babylon 5. And the show was filled with fantastic characters. And it became one of my favorite science fiction shows. I even like it over some of the Star Trek shows. There was almost this competition between, you had these two shows that were about space stations that had numbers on them. There was Deep Space Nine, and then there was Babylon 5. Well, I really liked Babylon 5 as a show a lot more than Deep Space Nine. I mean, I did like Deep Space Nine as well. I watched both of them, but I did like Babylon 5 more. I just like the look of the show more. I like the station more. I like the design of Babylon 5 a lot more as opposed to Deep Space Nine. And Babylon 5 had a really interesting story. It was different. It was more, I mean, all the shows now are serialized, and now it's like everything is serialized, so it's almost cliche now. It's almost, you kind of would like to see them go back to episodic TV again for some of the Star Treks, but it's all like almost like serialized, like a soap opera now, or like where every season like is an ongoing arc. Well, Babylon 5 is one of the first sci-fi shows to actually do that, where it had an actual arc that ran not just through the seasons, but through the whole series. And then they started to do that a little bit in Deep Space Nine and Voyager and stuff, and then a little bit in Enterprise. But then now, obviously, they've done it with, they just went full on with that kind of storytelling with Star Trek Discovery. But that was one of the things about Babylon 5 that really hooked me. It kind of had that, it kind of got you addicted the same way a soap opera does. Like, got you sucked in, you wanted to see where this story was going. And it had a really good story to it. And, the character of Delenn was a great character. And it's one of those great science fiction female characters that kind of gets forgotten about, because you hear so much of Ellen Ripley, and you hear so much of Princess Leia, and then Captain Janeway, and all those characters, which are good characters on their own. But the character of Delenn really gets looked over, and Mira Furlan did a fantastic job portraying the character. She had like this peculiar accent that you couldn't really place, so it made her sound otherworldly when she was doing the character. And I know one thing that I'm really glad they fixed was in the pilot, they made the character, now I found out later why they did it, but the character looked really masculine and had like a really deep voice that sounded like it was put deep artificially, and it sounded off and strange. And then they redid the makeup for the actual series and got rid of the deep voice. But the reason for that was Delenn was actually supposed to be a man in season 1, and then would metamorphosize into a female, I think, in season 2. But they changed that around and made it that the metamorphosis made her more human instead of switching genders. So that was the change that was made. And so they, the makeup was a lot better for the series. And then again in season 2, when she went through the metamorphosis and became more human looking, the makeup evolved again. And and the Minbari were always such an interesting race too on that show. They were way more advanced than humans, but they weren't quite as advanced as the Vorlons and those higher races, but they were still pretty advanced. And they were one of those races that a lot of the other races in the show really didn't want to cross paths with them or get on the Minbari's bad side. And so Delenn had a lot of great moments like that in the show, where she just drew that line in the sand and dared you to cross it. And a lot of these the younger races just wouldn't cross it. So it had a lot of great moments with the character. And then also another show that I watched that she starred in was Lost. I actually enjoyed Lost, and got really hooked on. Now it was I kind of binged it. I didn't keep up with the Lost as it was originally aired. It was like I started watching it actually at the last 2 seasons, so I had to go back and rewatch all the episodes to kind of catch up. And then she was in that show, and it was good to see her in that one as well. And now I know a lot of people didn't like the way Lost ended, but I'm one of the few that didn't mind the way the series ended. I thought it was kind of clever, but I'm in the minority. I realize that, but she did a great job in that show as well. And but the character I'm always going to remember her for is Delenn in Babylon 5. That's where I'm always going to place her, and that's how I'll always remember her, and that'll be like her signature role forever for me. Now I know she's starring in another science fiction series that's being produced by a former writer from TNG. He's got a YouTube channel, Mr. Sci-Fi. Watch some of his videos, and he's doing a series called Space Command, and she stars in that. and that's something I'd want to check out at some point in time as well. But it's always sad to hear about an actor that you really admire, or were on a show that you watched and you really got to know their character. You still feel like a loss, even though you never really, like, you don't really know the person. Like, you don't know them on a personal level. You only know them from what you see of them in interviews and on TV and stuff. But still, it's still sad to hear anyway. And as far as Babylon 5 goes, a lot of the cast members that were on that show have passed away now, and this is another one. So any chance of them ever doing any kind of reunion or any kind of new movie with the original cast or series or anything is, I think, gone out the window long ago. Definitely now, because Delenn was like one of the key characters to the series of Babylon 5. Her and John Sheridan. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.